The history of Taiwan from indigenous roots to modern democracy. Taiwan, officially known as the Republic of China (ROC), is a unique and dynamic entity with a rich and complex history. Its location off the southeastern coast of China has made it a point of strategic importance throughout centuries, shaping its cultural, political, and economic evolution. Today, Taiwan is known for its vibrant democracy, advanced economy, and a distinct national identity. Although its international status remains a point of contention, particularly with the People's Republic of China (PRC), which views Taiwan as a breakaway province. Early history and indigenous peoples. Before outside powers arrived, Taiwan was home to various indigenous groups, part of the Austronesian peoples who are believed to have migrated to the island around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Taiwan's indigenous peoples shared cultural and linguistic similarities with other Austronesian populations across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. These groups were mainly hunter-gatherers and practiced agriculture, living in tribal societies that remained isolated from mainland Asia. For much of early history, Taiwan was not significantly influenced by China, though some Chinese historical records from the Three Kingdoms period 3rd century CE mention the island, referring to it as Yizhou or Liuqiu. However, there was minimal interaction between Taiwan and mainland China during this time. Arrival of Europeans and the Ming Loyalists 17th century. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Taiwan became a focal point for European colonial powers. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to visit the island in 1544, naming it Ilha Formosa, Beautiful Island. However, it was the Dutch who would establish a lasting colonial presence. In 1624, the Dutch East India Company set up a base in southern Taiwan, primarily as a trading post to control trade routes between Japan, China, and Southeast Asia. During their rule, the Dutch introduced new agricultural methods and sought to convert indigenous populations to Christianity. However, Dutch control over Taiwan was short-lived. In 1662, Koxinga Chengong, a Ming loyalist general, ousted the Dutch and established the first Chinese-controlled regime on the island. Koxinga's forces had fled mainland China after the fall of the Ming dynasty to the Manchu Qing dynasty. He hoped to use Taiwan as a base to retake the mainland, but this plan ultimately failed, and his successors were unable to mount a serious challenge against the Qing. Qing dynasty rule 1683 to 1895. In 1683, the Qing dynasty defeated Koxinga's successors and incorporated Taiwan into the empire, making it a prefecture of the Fujian province. Under Qing rule, Han Chinese migration to Taiwan increased significantly. The Qing government encouraged the settlement of Chinese farmers, primarily from Fujian and Guangdong provinces, to develop the island's agricultural resources. Although Taiwan remained a somewhat peripheral part of the Qing Empire, the Chinese settlers began to outnumber and push indigenous populations into the mountainous interior, dramatically altering the island's demographic and cultural landscape. The Qing government maintained only loose control over Taiwan, and periodic uprisings and conflicts between settlers and indigenous groups were common. By the late 19th century, Taiwan's strategic importance became more apparent, especially as Japan and Western powers began expanding their influence in East Asia. Taiwan was rapidly modernizing, and the Qing government took steps to strengthen its defenses, but they proved insufficient. Japanese colonial period 1895 to 1945. Following China's defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War 1894–1895, the Qing government was forced to cede Taiwan to Japan under the Treaty of Shimonoseki in 1895. The island became Japan's first overseas colony, and the Japanese would rule Taiwan for the next 50 years. The Japanese implemented a wide range of reforms and modernizations in Taiwan. They invested heavily in infrastructure, building railways, roads, and ports, which transformed Taiwan's economy. Agriculture, particularly the production of rice and sugar, was modernized, and Taiwan became an important supplier of resources to the Japanese Empire. Japanese rule also brought advancements in education and public health. However, Japanese colonial rule was authoritarian, and resistance to Japanese policies was common in the early years. Uprisings, such as the Topani incident in 1915, were brutally suppressed. Over time, the Japanese sought to assimilate Taiwanese people into Japanese culture, promoting the use of the Japanese language and even attempting to indoctrinate them into the Shinto religion. Taiwanese society became more integrated into Japan, especially during the 1930s and 1940s, as Japan ramped up its imperial ambitions. Taiwanese men were conscripted into the Japanese military during World War II, and the island's industries were repurposed for Japan's war effort. The return to Chinese rule and the Civil War 1945 to 1949. Japan's defeat in World War II in 1945 led to Taiwan being returned to Chinese control. However, China itself was embroiled in a civil war between the nationalist Kuomintang KMT, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and the Chinese Communist Party CCP, led by Mao Zedong. The KMT took control of Taiwan after Japan's surrender, but the transition was far from smooth. Initial Taiwanese enthusiasm for Chinese rule quickly soured due to corruption and heavy-handed governance by the KMT authorities. This culminated in the February 28 incident of 1947, when a small altercation between a Taiwanese woman and government agents escalated into a large-scale uprising against the KMT. The uprising was brutally suppressed, resulting in thousands of deaths and deep resentment toward the mainland Chinese administration. Meanwhile, on the mainland, the civil war between the KMT and CCP reached its climax. In 1949, after the Communists secured victory, Chiang Kai-shek and the remnants of the nationalist government fled to Taiwan, bringing with them over 1 million Chinese refugees and declaring Taipei as the temporary capital of the Republic of China (ROC). The People's Republic of China (PRC) was established on the mainland, but Chiang maintained that the ROC government in Taiwan was the legitimate government of all China. The Cold War era and authoritarian rule 1950s–1980s. In the early years of KMT rule in Taiwan, the island was placed under martial law, which lasted until 1987. Chiang Kai-shek's government was authoritarian, and dissent was harshly repressed. The KMT implemented a series of policies to consolidate control over Taiwan, including land reforms, military rule, and a program to Sinicize Taiwanese society, promoting Mandarin Chinese and mainland Chinese cultural values. Despite the political repression, Taiwan began its economic transformation in the 1950s and 1960s, with significant assistance from the United States. During the Cold War, Taiwan was viewed as a key ally of the West in the fight against communism in Asia. Receiving military and economic aid from the US, Taiwan embarked on a path of rapid industrialization, becoming one of the four Asian tigers, along with South Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong. By the 1980s, Taiwan had transformed from an agrarian economy into a highly developed, export-driven industrial powerhouse. However, Taiwan's international position became precarious during this period. In 1971, the United Nations recognized the People's Republic of China as the legitimate representative of China, leading to Taiwan's expulsion from the organization. Many countries began to shift diplomatic recognition from the ROC to the PRC, further isolating Taiwan on the world stage. Democratization and the rise of Taiwanese identity. 1980s present. The 1980s marked a turning point in Taiwan's history, as the country began transitioning from authoritarian rule to democracy. After the death of Chiang Kai-shek in 1975, his son Chiang Ching-kuo became president and initiated limited political reforms. In 1987, martial law was lifted, and opposition political parties were legalized, paving the way for democratic elections. In 1996, Taiwan held its first direct presidential election, marking a significant milestone in the country's democratization process. Li Tenghui, Chiang Ching-kuo's successor, was elected president, becoming the first democratically elected leader in Chinese history. Under Li's leadership, Taiwan embraced democratic reforms, including the promotion of civil liberties, free speech, and political pluralism. At the same time, a distinct Taiwanese identity began to emerge, separate from the mainland Chinese identity promoted by the KMT. Many Taiwanese people, particularly younger generations, began to see Taiwan as a separate entity from China, with its own culture, values, and political system. In recent decades, Taiwan has continued to consolidate its democratic system, with peaceful transitions of power between different political parties, including the Democratic Progressive Party (DPP), which advocates for Taiwanese sovereignty. Taiwan has also become a global leader in technology, with companies like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company (TSMC) playing a critical role in the global supply chain for electronics. Cross-strait relations and international status. Taiwan's relationship with China remains one of the most contentious issues in East Asia. The People's Republic of China views Taiwan as a breakaway province that must be reunified with the mainland, by force if necessary. Taiwan, on the other hand, functions as a de facto independent state, with its own government, military, and constitution. Cross-strait relations have fluctuated over the years, with periods of heightened tensions and moments of relative calm. Despite China's diplomatic pressure, Taiwan maintains unofficial relations with several countries and has strong ties with the United States, which provides military support under the Taiwan Relations Act. Today, Taiwan stands as a vibrant democracy with a robust economy, navigating the challenges of its unique political status and asserting its identity on the global stage.